At the time of me recording this, which is in November of 2025, I'm not drinking, and I haven't had a drink since August. I go through periodic times in my life where I don't drink. If you listen to this podcast, I talk openly about how I've had addiction struggles in the past, and it's always been this life learning process of where drugs and alcohol fit in my life. The difference between what is happening right now and other times when I didn't drink is that this time around, I'm not sober. I'm not drinking alcohol, but I'm not sober from everything else. I started to realize that this was the most manageable way to be able to take out the alcohol and allow myself to do other stuff if I wanted to. It's felt like a lot less pressure, and I'm still way healthier, and my mental health is way better than it was by just taking out this one substance. I'm not sure if this is going to be something that lasts. It's only been a few months, and right now I'm wanting to take it day by day. I feel good right now, so there's no point in me thinking about adding alcohol back into my life. I've been at this place before where I felt really good without alcohol, and I ended up drinking again. So maybe I will drink again and try moderating it better, or I won't. I think the one thing I've learned about myself is that I have to figure out what works for me in my life. Sometimes it's abstinence, sometimes it's moderation, sometimes it's working with a therapist, sometimes it's practicing yoga. But for me, I really have to pay attention to what works for myself. I used to always look at other people who were 100% sober from everything, and they would say they've been sober for a month or 6 years or 10 years, and it would always make me feel like I was failing at being an addict, or being a sober addict to be more accurate. I've had a lot of mental health professionals help me figure out what works best for me without judgment. In this podcast episode, I talked to Dr. Dallas Bragg about his own experiences with chemsex and being addicted to crystal meth, as well as my own journey with substances. I hope this conversation can just normalize talking about addiction issues with gay men and how we can be a better support for each other. This is Mask Off for Mask, and I'm Vance. Hey, Dallas.
Hey, Vance, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's cold and rainy here, and this year I have decided to not get SAD, that seasonal affective disorder, because I spent so many years, I admit things that I probably shouldn't, but I spent many years making fun of people who said they had seasonal affective disorder, just kind of scoffing and saying it's not real. And then last year I came down with it bad. As soon as the time changed and it got darker sooner and it was cold, I just went through this depression and I got the SAD, seasonal affective. So this year I'm trying to get ahead of it. So I was out in the rain today saying, I appreciate this cold. It's fine. It's no big deal. It's not going to affect my mood. So that's how I am.
I always say, I actually just told my therapist this, that I was talking about, like, I actually enjoy when it gets to be like fall and winter because summer feels like too much pressure. So like, I just always feel like I'm supposed to be like out doing stuff and like out partying or like needing, if it's nice out on a Saturday, I'm like, I have to do something because we only get 2 months of this. And it's just like, once winter comes, it's like, oh, I can just stay inside all day and not care and not feel like I'm.
Yeah.
But I would rather live in a place where it was just nice all year round.
Yeah,
That would like take that problem away.
Me too. I really want to move to Costa Rica. That's my goal. So we'll see.
I'm a yoga teacher, or like used to teach actively, but I did my training in Costa Rica, so I spent a month there.
Nice.
It was amazing.
I've never actually been. So.
Oh really? Oh, you gotta go.
I know.
You should go do a retreat or something.
Soon. I know. I'm going to.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell everybody what you do?
Yeah. So I am a recovery coach for gay men who are addicted to or having trouble stopping chemsex. So chemsex is the term adopted for sexualized drug use in the queer community, or specifically men who have sex with men. So it could be crystal meth, which is most of it, but I also serve an international audience. So over in Europe, there's a lot of mephedrone, MEPH. And then in Eastern Europe, there's a new drug. It's the new meth, quote unquote, called monkey dust, which is bath salts, and it's actually much stronger and more dangerous than methamphetamine, but it's making its way. It showed up in New York a little bit here in the U.S., but I help men who are high functioning, who are just, they're at that stage where they're at the last stage where they just cannot stop the relapse. So it's maybe monthly, maybe every 2 months. Some people maybe weekly, but they just can't seem to stop, and they can't they've been to rehab, they've done the 12 steps, they just need that final push. And so I put them in a 6-month program to get them meth free, chemsex free by the time they leave.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's amazing. Do you find that work fulfilling, challenging?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fulfilling because, when I went through recovery, I I found it hard to articulate to treatment centers, I was in drug court, counselors, therapists. No one around me had heard of chemsex. They knew of crystal meth, but they didn't understand the nuance of crystal meth in the queer community, in the gay community. And as much as I tried to say it's different, no one would believe me, and they couldn't really relate or help me as much as I thought that
Mm-hmm.
they could. So that's why I thought I want to fill this gap, but also try to increase the dialogue, which is why I'm really happy that you had me here, because I'm trying to get people talking about this. Really, it's an epidemic. It's being called the next AIDS epidemic, basically, the crystal meth use among men who have sex with men, and it's being treated with the same stigma, even
Mm-hmm.
inside the community. So it's fulfilling in that I am seeing a gap filled. I'm seeing men who come and say, I've not been able to say this to anyone. This is what I did on crystal meth, because it's a very
Mm-hmm.
dark drug, and you do a lot of dark things, and you see a lot of dark things, and you talk about a lot of dark things. And it's hard to sit in front of a straight woman therapist, or even some gay therapist. It's hard to sit in front of them and say, something about drinking piss, or something. And
Yeah.
that's mild, really.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and you get that look on their face like, what? And if you get that look, a lot of times you're done. Like, you're not going to share
uh-huh.
anymore, because you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking, that's what happened to me actually in treatment. I started to feel a little comfortable, and I started talking about piss play. And all of a sudden they had a special meeting to talk about my mental state, and whether or not I needed extra care, and just really treating me like I was some type of reject because I had talked about drinking piss when I was,
Mm-hmm.
on meth, because it's a thing. It's chem piss, right? It's like you get a second round of the meth when you drink it in the urine. So anyway, I'm providing the space for men to be able to be seen, be heard, and be related to. And so it's really fulfilling. It's also actually fulfilling to see people stop, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their lives change, their families' lives change, their partners. And it is challenging as well, because it is virtual. It's virtual coaching, but I've adapted it in a way that it's very intense, but it's very much replicating treatment, but in a virtual sense. So yes, I would say I love it. I mean, to be honest with you, I can't get enough of it. I just
Mm-hmm.
cannot get enough of the work. I have to stop myself from working, to be honest.
Well, so saying all that now makes me curious to know your own journey with it. But when you're
Hmm.
saying that when the therapist or whatever group you're in
Hmm.
were talking about your mental state because you're talking about piss play,
Yep.
were you, because you live in North Carolina now, right? So
Yeah.
where is this all in North Carolina, and what
Yeah.
year was this?
Yeah, yeah, it was in North Carolina, and it was only that was back in 2018.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
To be honest, when you said that, because I was like, okay, North Carolina, because when you said that people were talking about your mental state, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, this must have been like 1998. And it was like, it's North Carolina. So
Yeah.
maybe, but wow, that's
Yeah.
surprised me.
It was it was not that long ago. Yeah, it's just, it's like when a gay man who's been in the crystal meth world and the chemsex world talks about hypersexuality in a group of straight people, the definition of hypersexuality is so different.
Mm.
Like, you have a straight woman or a straight man say, yeah, I've been with 5 people this year, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so astonishing to them. And you're thinking, I was with 5 people the first hour my last
Mm-hmm.
use, and it's so astonishing, and you feel like you feel worse. You just another layer of shame
Mm-hmm.
onto what you're already feeling when you're in a group like that. So it is the South, it is a misunderstanding for sure, but it wasn't that long ago at all. Yeah.
Can you tell us about the first time you did?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so I can't remember if we were saying this before we started recording, but when you said chemsex is not just Tina, is what you're talking about, right? So
That's right.
for you, what was the first drug, and what was
Mhm.
that experience like?
Yeah. So my drug was Tina, and
Mm-hmm.
Tina is mainly what you see. when you're talking about chemsex,
Mm-hmm.
but the other drugs are on the rise, right? So I came out late. I came out of the closet. I was married to a woman. We had two kids, and I came out late. I was 36 when I came out.
Okay.
And I had spent all of my life feeling out of place,
Mm-hmm.
misunderstood. I was never be able to be myself. You know the whole story when you're closeted, but it was 3 decades of it. And so I had had enough and I finally came out. And so in my mind, I thought this will be where I finally find myself, my tribe. This is be
Mm-hmm.
where I'm accepted. I had this vision. I didn't even know anybody who was gay at the time. I watched Will and Grace on TV, and that was what I thought in my mind my life was going to be. And
Yep.
so yeah, and so I just came out, and I was such in a hurry because I had this. Any gay man who's come out late will tell you you have this mentality of I got to make up for lost time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I have missed the boat. Before I get too old, I got to fuck everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do all the gay stuff. And so I came out and left my wife within 2 weeks and
Mm-hmm.
was just thrust myself into the gay community, which thrusting myself in the gay community was equal to getting Grinder, right? Like I had Grinder, and that's how I was getting my at first validation and thinking I could find myself. But what I was getting from Grinder was comments about when I showed up, you're not, you're more femme than I thought you would be. And comments about my pictures being misleading because I came across as this straight acting masked dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time I was like, okay, so I've spent all my life trying to cover up how I act, and now I'm in this community not covering up, but it's still being judged. I still feel
Mm-hmm.
like I can't be myself.
Yeah.
And then for me, I didn't know what else to do but go to the gay clubs, and I started going to the gay clubs and trying to make friends, and it was very difficult. And one of the first nights I was out, a gay guy came up to me who knew of my situation and my wife somehow,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Could you not have just pretended to be straight for a few more years until your kids graduated?" Because he was like, all the therapist bills you're going to have to pay for those kids now."
Mm-hmm.
And so I just ran out of there and I ran to my car and I was just like bawling because I was like, I don't belong anywhere. I belong nowhere, nowhere. Like
Can I
not
ask you in
here,
that?
not there.
Yeah. Can I ask you in that experience? Were you with friends or anybody, or did you just go to the bar by yourself?
I pushed myself to go by myself. And so I
Yeah.
started, I was meeting a couple of people. I was standing with them and he walks up. He was one of their friends and he recognized me.
Yeah, because I think that I remember even like I came out when I was 16, but like so I always think of like when I graduated high school. I mean, high school was rough being out, but when I turned 19 and go to the bar and stuff, I thought that I was like, oh, and when I moved out of my parents' house, that I was like, oh my God, gay guys are gonna be like, it's gonna be so great. And I always remember this moment. I went to the bar and I think I was there by myself too, but it doesn't matter. And there was a group of guys and I knew a couple of them, and I went over and said hi, and I was like expecting they'd be like, hey, come hang out with us. And the one guy said hi to me, and then they all turned their backs and
Yep.
like closed the circle, and I was like, okay. But now
Yep.
like perspective of all that stuff, but like as a 18, 19-year-old or 36-year-old,
Right.
that's harsh.
Yeah, it is. It is. And yeah, I was 36, but really I was 18,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
really.
Yeah.
But the turning the back stuff happened to me too. And so I was pretty dismayed. And
Mm-hmm.
long story long, I was on Grinder on a Sunday morning,
Mm-hmm.
just scrolling. I was reading a book outside. I don't know. And this guy was, saying, "Do you party?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I party." I
Yeah, yeah.
drink or whatever. And I'm thinking, day drinking on a Sunday, that sounds fun. And
Mm-hmm.
so he invited me over. So I come to this house that's kind of overrun, and but he comes to the door, and he's just like this hot ass guy, and he was inviting me in. So I was like, you know what, I'm going. And so we go in, and there's TVs with porn everywhere, a sling, and
Mm-hmm.
this. If you've ever watched Sketchy Sex or any of those types of, the Fraternity X,
Porn sites,
that's
yeah.
that's how it looked. Just
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah,
trash
yeah.
everywhere, disheveled couch, and all this stuff. And not every chemsex, party looks
Yeah.
like that, but his looked like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the hell, And so, but but the thing is that he was looking at me, touching me, treating me, and talking to me like I had always wanted to feel.
Mm.
Like unconditionally wanted me, just like
Mhm.
wanted me so bad. And he didn't care how I talked. He didn't care what I
Mhm.
looked like. To me, I thought this was what I've been waiting for. I didn't realize it was because he was fucking high on meth, you
Mhm.
know, because he,
Yeah.
he would have probably acted the same way no matter what man
Mhm.
walked through the door, right? And so, but I just took it as approval, validation,
Yeah.
finally. And
Yeah.
so then when he hands me the pipe, I'm just like, I don't know what this is,
Uh-huh.
but anyway, I took it because it was him. It was so
Mhm.
he taught me how to smoke out of the pipe, and he gave me some GHB, and it was on. Not
Mhm.
the first puff of crystal meth, you feel like it's a magic elixir where your shame is just wiped away. I mean, any
Mhm.
shame, any internalized homophobia, any trauma, any insecurity sexually, it's just erased. It's all gone.
Mhm.
And for men like me, we've waited all of our lives to feel that relief. And not
Mhm.
only that, as we get to our libido is so high. And so we get to fuck. And so he and I proceeded to have sex for the next 2 days
Mhm.
without sleep, without food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there, and the whole time you were like, this is great, and at
Yeah. I was
the
like,
end of it, even.
I was like, this is it. This is it for me. Like I was
Mhm.
head first after that. Like I was just finishing up my doctorate. I had just defended my dissertation. I was teaching in an MBA course. I was an executive at a law school. I was making like, I don't know, 130,000 a year or something like that. This was the first drug I'd ever tried, ever.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because, I'm an alcoholic, drug addict, and I'm very loose because I'm not drinking right now, but
Mhm,
I smoke pot, and
mhm,
I always am
mhm.
trying, like, I have addiction issues is kind of what I say, because it's like always this fluctuating thing.
Mm.
Because I also like don't know if I want to stop drinking forever. Anyways, but when I was seeing a drug counselor when I was 16, and
Mm,
because I started drinking, I started drinking when I was 14. It was probably an alcoholic the moment I drank, but I realized that I was like in high school being out too and being treated like shit by everyone. As soon as I drank, I was like, people like me and I have
mm,
like confidence. And so I would like, I
mhm,
loved drinking because I was like, it just makes me feel like I can finally be myself. And actually, people like me better when I'm drunk. But I was also drinking by myself every night
mm,
until my mom caught me and sent me to a
mm,
drug counselor when I was 16. But
mm,
I'm so grateful for it because,
mm,
like, even now, like, I'm 36 now, and like I still struggle with these issues, but sometimes I'll be like, fuck, I've been working on this half my life. But then I'm also like, yeah, but you're gonna be working on it forever. And
mhm,
also you are like way more skilled with it now than you were when you were 16. And I think sometimes
mm,
with gay men, especially, and maybe notice this too with guys, is that like when we're not out and able to be ourselves in our teenagers or our 20s, then we're not like going out to gay bars and like making mistakes, trying things and
mm,
doing things that
mhm,
maybe don't work out. And like in my 20s, I partied hard for like my
mm.
early 20s, but I was like, that was the time to do it if I was going to
Right.
do it. And
Yep.
so I'm happy that I did it when I was like, I had no responsibilities or nothing that I
Mm,
was like pursuing or had anything going on, right? So I'm happy now that I can like focus on my work and myself now and be like, yeah, sure, blow would be great, but I also know where that road leads because I've been down that road. And so it's like I'm very
mm,
aware of this is like, yeah, this stuff is great, but like there's a
mm.
price to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, I didn't have any of that, and
Mhm.
so it's like my therapist used to say I was like a kid in a candy store in that very beginning. And
Mhm.
the thing about you hear a lot about alcohol, cocaine, whatever, it does take away, it does help you be liked, it does take away kind of your insecurities. The thing about crystal meth, it does that, and your libido goes through the roof. Like you
Mhm.
become a sex zombie. All you can think about, I have to have sex, and I have to have sex as often as possible and with as many men as possible.
Mhm.
So that's why at the chemsex parties or when you're on chemsex, you get stuck on Grinder scrolling. It's almost like also a gambling addiction because
Mhm.
you're stuck on the grind of you got to find more guys. No matter how many come over, your brain gets into this thing where you have to find as many guys to come to the party as possible. Even when
Mhm.
they come, you're still paying attention to Grinder. So
Yeah.
it's a really weird dynamic of a sex drug that ultimately you don't have sex on either. I mean, eventually, like you hear this all the time, that the first time you're always chasing that first time, right? Like for my first time, I never had an experience like that again, because meth causes psychosis. A lot of guys were in psychosis. I was in psychosis a lot. You know, you're paranoid. You think people are watching you. You think people are listening to you, watching you through the cameras, right? It turns really ugly really fast.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, so when you left that first time from doing it, and what were you thinking about it? And then were you automatically like, I got to do this again, and a couple days later? Like, what was your second experience like?
Yeah. I thought to myself, this is it. I have finally found my tribe. Like, I have found my area. So then I knew what to ask for and how to talk on the apps, because it has its own language.
Well, hang on, before you get to, so when you're like, these are my people, my tribe, that guy that you were doing Tina with, the first guy, what were you thinking? Like, that guy, I'm in love with this guy?
Yes.
What were you?
Yes.
Yeah. What happened with him?
I fell so hard for him, because if you're with somebody who made you feel the way you've always wanted to feel 48 hours straight, and you're having sex the whole time, and you also, on meth, you also talk a lot.
Okay.
You share a lot. So 48 hours straight with no sleep with one person, you're bonded, right? And I thought that we were going to be boyfriends and that we were going to just do meth for the rest of our life. You know, I really would believe that he loved me too. But so when the drugs ran out, he left. And he he insinuated that we would stay in touch and all that kind of stuff. But he disappeared for 2 weeks because he went off to do more and left me there. And so for the next few days, he didn't warn me. He didn't tell me what was going to happen. I didn't know that I wouldn't be able to sleep. I couldn't sleep for 2 to 3 more days. I was sick. I started seeing things, you know, the shadow people and all the stuff that comes with dehydration and sleep deprivation. I was just really going crazy for a couple of days, and I really didn't want to tell anyone what was wrong. You know, I didn't want to go to the doctor and say I just did a bunch of meth, and I didn't want to tell family or friends. So I suffered alone, really, in my house for the next 2 or 3 days. I missed work, you know. But yeah, I really did fall in love with him. In fact, I tell this story a lot. I fell in love with every man I used with. This was a thing for me. I was looking for connections so badly. I was looking for approval so badly that I used the drug to get men to spend time with me. And then I was convinced every time that we were going to be together forever. Every time. And then they would leave me.
Yeah, and then so would you just be looking for the next guy to not have to grieve the last guy?
Yeah, that's basically it. And you're right. So after that first time, after I did the come down and I got some sleep, I was on the hunt now, right? Like, I had to have that again. And if he wasn't going to answer me or have anything to do with me, there were plenty more guys. I didn't know that, but I knew the language now. I knew to use the party emoji, the little emoji with his blowing his party, you know, his party hat and his thing, the capital T. You know, I knew what to say now, and I knew how to sort my grinder grid to find them. And little did I know they were everywhere, you know, and that's the thing with this epidemic. It's everywhere in every country all around the world. And all you have to do is get on Grindr and you'll have it. You'll have it within 30 minutes or less. And so then I was just bouncing. You know, I started to miss work more, and I had my kids every other week. And so at first I would go the week without doing it, and just do it when I didn't have them. But then it just started bleeding into when I would have them. So it would be at night after they went to bed. I would party all night. It got bad. And so from that day, fast forward 3 years, I had been arrested for felony possession 4 times. I lost my car. I was fired from my job. And then finally, I was evicted after 3 years, lost my house, and I was homeless. I went from executive and a professor, just got my doctorate, to homeless in 3 years.
Wow.
It just took me down real fast.
Was there anyone in your life that was like, I don't know what terms you were on with your ex-wife, but like, was there anyone in your life that was wanting to help you?
Well, my ex-wife thought she was helping. She really wasn't. She did help by never taking the kids away from me, because they were really what saved me, especially in the end. My mom See, the thing is, the other reason I started my podcast and the other reason I started doing what I'm doing is to try to educate families on what is happening when your loved one is doing chemsex. Because
Mhm.
it has its own Zoom channels. You can go on Zoom
Yeah.
24/7 and use with other guys anytime you want. It has its own Telegram channels. It has this own subculture. And if you don't understand that, it's hard to help the guy. It's hard to help your loved one who's using because you don't know what to look for and you don't know when exactly they're going to be using, which is at 2 a.m. You don't realize they're out all night. My mom didn't understand what was going on. My sister didn't understand how to help either. No one around me understood, and there were no resources at the time. There was no one
Mhm.
to ask about. The gay guys that were doing it aren't going to help. They're trying to hide it. They're trying to be anonymous anyway. It's not like they're going to try to help me. If
Mhm.
anything, if anything was the only time that they wanted to talk to me is when they wanted to use, or if I could score, if I could provide, which is what I did for most of the time.
Yeah.
So I was just lost. I was really lost, confused, and toward the end, I was using IV intravenously, and it just fucked my brain up. And then I got addicted to shoplifting when I lost my job. It just became a mess,
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Sounds
a
like it.
big mess. And then
So
finally homeless.
yeah. So what was the thing that made you finally be like, I need help?
Well, so the last arrest, I didn't show up for court, and so there
Mhm.
was an APB out, for me, and
What were you doing?
what was
Like,
it?
did you know what were you doing? Why didn't you show up for court that day? Were
I
you
just,
using?
yeah, I just like in my mind, I kept thinking they don't mind, or I'll get out of it
They don't
or
mind.
something.
I'm sure no one cares. They won't even
Right? No
notice.
one really cares. Right? That's the kind of what goes on in my mind. And so my mom had come down from West Virginia and got me out from under a tree and took me back to West Virginia to get sober. The first day I was in West Virginia, I got on Grinder and I found a guy 55 miles away who was using, and he came and got me. So I was already using the first day I went to West Virginia. When you have Grinder, you can find a way to use. It doesn't matter,
Mm.
even in West Virginia. So anyway, things went bad in West Virginia, and so I got a ride back to Charlotte, got up with my old crew, and they had some of this new meth. So there's now super meth is in the system, which it was coming into the country about that time in 2018. Super meth is made in cartel Mexican labs, and so it's 99.9% pure. It's just very potent. I of course, didn't know that, and I shot a bunch of that up, and I went into psychosis, and they ended up throwing me out of the hotel room because I was a liability, out of the car, and I was just roaming around the city. And so I saw a police officer, and there was something deep in the recesses of my mind that just said, just turn yourself in. Like,
Mhm.
at least they'll give you food. At least you can sleep. Just do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I just walked up to the police officer and handed him my ID, and then it was on. He handcuffed me.
Can I ask, in that interaction with the police officer, did you get treated with compassion?
No, not at all.
No. No.
Not at all. No. He was upset. There was something else that had to do with him being. Oh, I also, in addition to shoplifting, also made fake IDs.
Okay.
And so I had several
So
fake
you
IDs in my
handed him the
wallet
fake
too.
ID?
And so I had several. He looked at my wallet and he was like, somebody had stolen his identity. And so it really hit him hard too, what I was
Wait a
doing.
minute. First of all, this cop, so he's trauma dumping on you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, yeah, this happened to me and this is despicable and you should be ashamed of yourself. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I just,
It's
I
awful.
don't, I don't know what to say here. I'm sorry, but
Mhm.
I don't know what to say. Um,
Mhm.
and so that last time in jail, I was making my calls and nobody would answer. My mom wouldn't answer. My friends, my sister, they were done with me. Right.
Mhm.
And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to call my daughter. She was 16 at the time. And
Mhm.
of all people, always, of all the stuff that I did to her, because I did a lot of stuff to her, I wrote bad checks on her account, all that kind of stuff, all the nasty stuff you do. But she answered and she was like so concerned for me and she wanted me to be safe
Mhm.
and blah, blah, blah. And so she and my son, who was 14 at the time, drove when I got out. They drove to the jail and picked me up.
Mhm.
So they picked me up and we went to a park and we just had this long talk about what was happening. And, they just said, my daughter's like, we need a parent. We need you to be our parent again. And honestly, I didn't have any choice either. I mean, so I was facing prison. My kids needed me. And so that's when they have an option here for drug treatment court, where you go to rehab and you get tested at the court like 4 or 5 times a week. You see a judge every other week. And so I went through this program. It was 18 months. And at the end, they dropped all my charges and they expunged them off my record.
That's good.
And of course, in 18 months, I was still sober. And so at the time, I got a job at a restaurant and I got us a house to rent and the kids came to live with me. Just one by one, I got a car. I just started working my way up. So by 18 months, I was ready to live and ready. And I saw what life could be like without the drug. And so out of the confines of drug court, I stayed meth free after that.
Yeah. And I'm curious about, especially sex, but like just relationships with gay men. So when you're coming out of that, because even for myself, like, I mean, see it all the time with gay guys, especially, but like a lot of our communities are kind of based in drinking and partying and drugs and all that.
Yep.
And sometimes it's not, chemsex, but a lot of times it's like just everything's like you go to the bar every weekend. That's just what you do. And like for myself right now, even like I haven't drank since August, but I counted. I was like, this is the 6th time I think I've tried to quit drinking, but it's going really well. So that's good. But I was like, but one of the things that is reason why it's so hard to stop is because you kind of have to cut off a lot of people, or you just start to notice that like, I don't want to go drinking all the time. So like, I can't do that. So the option is like, okay, I got to be alone. If I want to not drink, I have to be alone for a bit and get comfortable with that. And then start to like, even right now, I'm in this process of like building friendships with other men sober is like a very vulnerable, scary thing. And it's like, God, it would be so easier if I could just have drinks with them and be fun and that's it. But like, I'm like, shit, I have to be real. And like, my emotions are going to come out. My feelings are going to come out. And that's really scary because a lot of guys can't handle that. And especially when you're used to these very superficial relationships. So what was the process for you with men, other gay men, in building those relationships, romantically or friendships?
Yeah. The thing about crystal meth too is that it dilutes and rewires your arousal template. So, and it fuses to sex. So the brain cannot think of sex without meth. And so it's very crucial in the beginning that you detox yourself away from sex, because anytime you're horny, your body is thinking you need to go use meth. It's like what fires together wires together, as they say. And so you're not only trying not to use, but you're also every day reminded, you're triggered every time you get horny. And so that was tough for me in terms of how do I do this? And my particular case, this happens to a lot of men too, is that you also have erectile dysfunction coming out of it a lot of times. And you're addicted to pornography because while you're on meth, you're watching hours of pornography, like days and days in a row of pornography. And so I took a year off of completely everything, and I didn't know, like I have men do this now, but I didn't know this was the right thing to do. But you have to start mindfully masturbating, in terms of masturbating without porn, masturbating to scenarios where it's sober scenarios, and then using masturbation to figure out what arouses me naturally and what is meth-centered arousal. Because when you're on meth, all of a sudden you want to be fisted by everybody and you want to do, all the things, the leather and, all the stuff. And then so you have to figure out, like, was that what I was really into, or was that meth fueled? And so you have to, it's like walking through this minefield of getting aroused by something and then finding out, like, is that me? Or is that meth? And you have to really distinguish that, because if you go down the meth route, then it's just going to trigger you. You're going to want to use, and you're going to want to, if you want to get fisted during using meth, then you're going to want to go out and do meth, right? And get that. And so for me, what I did was a little different in that I met a guy who needed a place to live. Okay. And I needed somebody to practice on, no strings attached.
Okay.
Because I needed a fuck buddy where I could say, there's no pressure to get hard. There's no pressure to come.
Yeah.
I might freak out in the middle of it. I might get traumatized, but I need to know what I like and what I don't, what was me and what was meth. And he was like, okay. And you're like, he didn't care. And so that's what we did. There were times when we just touched each other. There were times when we did we tried stuff in public, and I used him to try different things, and he didn't mind, right? And it
was he
really
a sex worker, or was he into you, or
no?
like,
Yeah, he was
obviously
he was
liked
into
you, or...
me. Yeah, it was into me physically, right?
Yeah.
But we knew it was very clear going in about what it was, and that this is not. And to me, I needed that. I didn't. The pressure of trying to date or the pressure of somebody liking me was going to kill the whole experience. I needed to be able to be safe and to try things without this, like, will he like that? Will he not like me anymore? That kind of thing. And he just happened to be the perfect person for that. And so that's what a lot of guys do, is they get these fuck buddies coming out of meth, and they use it to rewire the brain, so the brain doesn't say, just because I'm having sex, I need meth. And then unfuse the meth-fueled fantasies so your arousal template returns back to your arousal template, not a meth-fueled arousal template. We
I was just gonna ask, with that guy, can you think of an example where you there was something where you did freak out or you were getting triggered, and what did this guy do for you specifically that was like, wow, this guy is making me feel safe?
Yeah. So we tried on harnesses, and I hadn't worn harnesses or leather stuff until I did meth. It wasn't something that I did. So we tried harnesses on, and we started making out or whatever, and all of a sudden my body said, I want to shoot up. I want meth. Right. And so all he had to do, though, is I said to him, this is triggering me. I got to stop. Right. And the thing is that he presented the space of, fine, good, no problem. There's no shame. There was no, hey, I want to do this, or you're too much. The response was so welcoming because it was understood too.
Yeah.
And so he didn't have to do anything but just be present and be unconditional with it and non-judgmental. And so that was it. I had gone through so many men who were upset if I couldn't get hard enough or if I didn't go long enough, and all of that. And so I just needed.
When you were doing meth or just sober?
Yeah. When I was doing meth.
Yeah,
both.
meth.
Both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah. The thing about meth too is oddly enough, it's a sex drug, but it makes a lot of men limp. Yeah. So if you go to a chemsex party, they're passing out meth, but they're also passing out Viagras, or Trimix, this injectable.
Yeah. So, it's funny. Yeah. I also make porn, and it's very common for like Viagra, Cialis, Trimax to go around, and that's fine. You're performing and stuff, but I also see it with like guys going out partying too, right? And I was thinking about this the other day where I was like, we as men are getting to this place where like we're so focused on making everything look perfect that we're not even feeling anything inside. If we can like shoot our dick up, then like that we get so hard that we like are hard for 8 hours, can't even get the dick down. That it's like, okay, so where is the focus on actually like enjoying the sex or feeling pleasure or connecting to the person or even our own body? We're using all these things to just like kind of run away from the vulnerability of sex, which is, what drugs and alcohol do, is like, instead of showing up and being like, hey, I might not get hard, or I might not come, or hey, I'm struggling with sober sex because I don't really do this that often. Be like, it should be okay to show up with someone you trust. That is going to be non-judgmental, but like we got to start practicing like showing up as ourselves instead of using all these things. And I think it's become so normalized too that like, if we're going to go out and do drugs, we'll take Cialis or Viagra, and not be like, well, maybe we should listen to our bodies and be like, do you want to have sex sober? Like, even for me, I find it's like, I'm really lucky that, because even in my, like when I was partying in my 20s, like I would get wasted, blackout drunk, and go home with guys. And then the next day be like, I don't even remember that. And then, or be like, oh my God, what was I thinking? And I was lucky enough to have a guy hit on me at the gym who is this like older, sexy man. And because we're at the gym, I was like nervous and like anxious about it. But I also was like, but I'm also sober. So I'm like aware that I am into this guy. I also know that he's into me. I'm understanding the situation. And this like anxiety is actually like kind of excitement. And it feels like a little like And maybe I'll get rejected. Maybe it will turn not my way. But
Mhm.
I also am like, well, I kind of want to see if there is, because there's being
Mm.
vulnerable and taking the risk to get rejected. It's
Mhm.
like, but if it does work out, it's like, fuck, that's like the best. And so, as I
Mm.
always say too, it's like what I've learned about just vulnerability, everything that kind of seems a little scary, whether it's like even just asking friends to like hang out sober, it's like that feeling of like, oh, this is a little scary because I might get hurt. I should do this because
Mhm.
like if it does work out, the vulnerability is almost the replacement for the drug. Like instead of taking
Yeah.
a pill, I'll do this scary thing. And as soon as you get through the scary thing, you're like, oh my God, I'm feeling just as like aroused and excited and all this stuff that the drug would
Mm.
have given me. But now
Yeah.
because I've done the vulnerable thing with this person and they made me feel safe, now my body
Mm.
can lean into like all the
Mm.
amazing feelings, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's great. That's a great way. That's very articulate.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, no, I mean, it's the number one inhibitor for men coming out of this is the fear of sober sex, that they can't do it, right? And that it's going to be all their insecurities are going to come up. Some of these guys that I work with haven't had sober sex in 10, 12, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. If you can start with just a little bit of vulnerability. I had a client who had he had sober sex for the first time, and they started out with these cards they were different questions, like from really easy questions to really hard questions, and
Mm-hmm.
they did that for like an hour first, just
Mm-hmm.
to get to know each other and to share. When you're sharing something very vulnerable and personal, that's intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We
Yeah.
think intimacy is touch and feel and all that kind, but that's intimacy, to share something from your childhood, or something hurtful, or something personal to you. That's sexy. That's a
Mm-hmm.
that's a way to bond with somebody. And if you can start that way, a lot of times then the sex is just so much better. But you're right.
Yeah.
Like we just have this, we all want to replicate the porn.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be like we see in the porn, or it's not good sex.
Mm-hmm. But then,
Mhm.
yeah, but then it's like, I mean, I was just saying that to someone the other day about how like porn it's as someone who makes it, it's like, it does not feel the way that people think it is. And so like, even right now I'm trying
Mm.
to make porn, even when I just shoot stuff with OnlyFans, I'm like, can we just try to enjoy the sex we're having instead of like try to get the right angles and these like crazy positions that no one does? I'm like, why
Right.
don't we just like try to enjoy it, and hopefully people will see like maybe the expressions on our face and
Yep.
be like, wow, he looks like he's really into that. He's feeling
Yeah.
that. And be like,
Mhm.
that's kind of what you want to move towards.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it is. It's like porn isn't real. It's
Right.
performance. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can be, but I think a lot of times what we've seen, and it's funny. I watched a documentary about like the guy who made Falcon Studios, and
Mm.
like the whole thing with him too was that he had all this internalized homophobia, and so like he made all the models be these hyper masculine guys.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, so we're all fucked up about our bodies because this gay
Right.
guy who didn't love himself like fucked
Right.
us all up by like creating this fantasy that was his own
Yep.
trauma. And
Yep.
now we're all like still like in this space of like, oh,
Mm.
but that's what we have to look like to fuck
Mhm.
or to feel
Mhm.
desirable.
Yep. And you have to act like, right? Yeah.
Hmm. So
Exactly.
can I ask you when I mean well I'll ask you, have you found good sex sober now?
Yes. Yeah. Very good. The other thing is too, like my kids were teenagers, like I said.
Mhm.
So I took a year off. I practiced with this guy for 6 months. Then I focused on getting them through out of high school and into college.
Mhm, yeah.
And then I said, okay, I'm ready to explore. And so I have found since then the sex that I never thought I would have, to be
Mhm.
honest, because I am so much more comfortable in my skin now than I ever was. And so I know what I want. I know how to articulate what I want, and I know how to kind of vet people out who are going to kind of give me that space that I need. And of course, I want to give them the space they need too, but I'm just not jumping in bed with anybody either.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I have found that this real connection, like you're saying, this vulnerable type connection, it produces a sex that I've never had before.
Mm.
Even with my wife, of course, that was not connected sex either.
Mhm.
But just the connection that I've been able to find, and the fun in exploring. too.
Mhm.
Like I'm just kind of rewriting everything
Mhm.
and exploring new things, new kinks and new fetishes, um, and just I don't know. It's been this kind of adventure for me to be able to articulate this is what I value about sex. This is exactly what I'm looking for, and setting a boundary, and then for me that's different because I'm not just contorting myself to say yeah that's what I'm into as well, just so they'll come
Mhm.
over,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? I can say I am not into that, but I am into this. Find the right people, and so that whole process has been not only good for sex, but it's just good for me personally, just to
Mhm.
practice boundaries and being just so safe in this container.
Yeah.
And so the thing about sober fetish and sober kink is there's so much conversation. There's so
Mhm.
much you want to know. Like, this is what I consent to, this is what I don't consent to. And you don't have any of that in meth, right? It's a
Mhm.
rolling
Yeah.
consent. There's no
Yeah. Yeah.
asking,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, right? And you come to a place of trusting. Like, this is your role, this is my
Mhm.
role, this is what, it's very clear and the communication is just so rich. And so I
Mhm.
just find that if you if people in the meth world only knew the level of vulnerability, intimacy that you can get in a sober kink and sober fetish world, they would come out of it much
Mhm.
easier because you just think it's going to be vanilla, but it's not. It's just a different type of connection.
Yeah, I actually, when I got sober in 2019, I had a great therapist who said to me, and she wasn't even talking about sex, but she was saying to me, if you give up drinking, you need to find something to replace that like edge, that
Mm,
excitement that you were getting out of it. And for me, this was before I was doing any sex work stuff. And I was like, what do I think like the most that excites me? Like sex. I love sex. I always say this.
mm.
I like was obsessed with Britney and Madonna when I was a kid. And I was like, I always was. Sex was like my, I don't know,
Mm,
I just loved it. And so, like, not even having it, I just love sexuality. Anyway, so I was like, oh, sex. And then she told me, go do something with that, but do something that, like, you can do yourself, that's easy to do.
mm,
Like when I decided, I was like, okay, well, if it's sex, I need to maybe I'll just go buy a sex toy. So your only job
mm,
this week is go to a sex store, walk
mm.
in, find a toy, get a toy, and walk out. Like just put yourself in the space and you know you can do that. Like there is nothing
Mm,
stopping you from doing that. It doesn't require anyone else. And it just started with that. And then I ended up like, okay, what's the next thing? I'll do dance classes. Dance is like a sensual erotic thing for me.
mm.
Then I
Yeah.
found a burlesque workshop from that. And then I was
Mm,
like, okay, I'll do burlesque. And because I got to be in the show. And then I was like, oh my God. So burlesque showed me the sex positive community where like this
mm,
was about like where you talk about like the kink, the BDSM community and sex workers and stuff. That like
mhm,
because it's so when you're dealing with kink or BDSM, especially, it's like consent and communication is so important that you almost feel like I've had sex with other like sex coaches, sex therapists, and it's so funny. I remember one time having sex with this guy, and at the end of it, he was like, "I just noticed like near the end, you seemed kind of like not all there. I just want to check in and make sure." And I was
yeah.
like, "No, I think I was getting tired," but I was like, "Thank you for checking in." And it's almost like it's just it's over what most people do, right? But I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's the scary vulnerable thing is like, yeah, you got to show up to these spaces sober, but like the communities are so much more about actual connection over
Mhm,
what a lot of guys, what for most guys do is like go out to like a circuit party or something where like no consent. And one of the things that, not
mm,
there's anything wrong with it, but like when you get that many guys that are all fucked up and everyone is just touching each other, like I don't
mhm.
feel relaxed because I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, that guy's looking at me. He won't stop looking at me. He's making me
mm,
uncomfortable. That guy won't stop touching me. That like I find that
yeah,
a lot of that comes into it. And so I'm like, I
mhm,
just don't feel as like relaxed in that
mm,
space because I don't
yeah,
want to be just touched by anybody. I don't want someone to come over
yeah,
and kiss me when I don't want it. And so
mm,
I found a lot of times that like it was just in my work, but I just love being more, I felt safer on a porn set. It's like
yeah,
there was so
interesting.
much of consent, communication,
Mm,
checking in, making
mhm,
sure everyone was safe. And, you know,
mm,
it's just when you like understand sex is this very vulnerable thing, you have to do that
yeah,
stuff to make sure that everyone is enjoying the experience.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love what you just
Hmm.
said. It just makes a big difference, and it's
Hmm.
just not something you're gonna get in a chemsex scene, or like you said, in a party scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah, for sure.
Do you still get triggered when you're having sex to want to do, Tina?
No, I don't. I still have triggers, but it's. I don't know. It's my triggers are around the needle. So
Mm-hmm.
my triggers are like seeing a vein
Yeah.
or veins is popping at the gym, different things like that.
Oh
That
yeah.
triggers the sensation in my body of shooting up.
Mm-hmm.
But sex doesn't. Just I have done a good job of rewriting what's
Yeah.
going on up here. And the thing is like I've spent a lot of time saying if you have sober sex, you get to go to sleep after that, and you get to function as a normal human the
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
day. Just
Yeah.
talking to myself in terms of using meth is not just that sexual encounter. It's going to be the next 2 days of
Mm-hmm.
coming down, and your emotions out of whack, and you're malnourished, and you miss work, and your family's wondering where you are. And that's the whole package that I have to consider.
Mm-hmm.
So no, sex doesn't trigger me anymore at all. And that's still the thing is I've discovered orgies, like group sex. And I've discovered different ways that I thought I could only do group sex if I was high, because I
Mm-hmm.
never thought as a sober person that I would be secure enough, and like you're saying, somebody
Mm-hmm.
coming over and touching you don't want to, I like me being afraid to ask, like, or being afraid to approach somebody. But I have found, again, given the right circumstances, given the right conversations, given the right space, you have such a better experience in a sober
Mm-hmm.
realm of having group sex than you ever did on drugs. When you're on drugs, you think you're having great sex. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I made the mistake one time of videoing when I was on chemsex.
Yeah.
And I watched it when I was sober. I was like, this is the worst thing I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I just deleted it because it was just so clunky and bug-eyed, and
Yeah.
starting and stopping and thinking you see it, thinking you hear his noise, and
Yeah.
adjusting the music, adjusting the lights, it's like, wow. I thought in my
Mm-hmm.
mind I was having mind-blowing sex.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrible. It was awkward as fuck.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But also that's like what you're saying about even if the experience isn't that great or for some reason it's like not that great of sex, the feeling of being able to be like walking away sober and still being like, well, that
Yeah.
wasn't great and I went home.
That's right.
It's still such a better feeling than being like I caved and used the drugs
That's
to
right.
make the experience better. Like I was able to be like, no, this isn't great. I can leave. Like,
That's
and when
right.
you leave, there's a great feeling about that. And, and I think
Mhm.
maybe this is similar with us is that, I've, like, even especially in my 30s and like meeting a lot of guys who didn't party hard in their 20s. And sometimes I'll be at a party with guys and all of a sudden it's like, you can tell this is going to be like a 2-day bender. This hasn't happened in a while. I'm not drinking, so I've gone out, but like, sometimes I would be like, I did this when I was 22. And so you can kind of be like, this is not what I want to do. And so I can even recognize when I'm in that space that this is like,
Mm.
this is not where I want to be because I've been here before, right?
Mhm.
Because you see everyone around you not aware of where they are or what they're doing or maybe the consequences of it, but you are so
Mhm.
aware. So you're like, I don't even know how to communicate with these people because I
Yeah.
kind of want to say, I don't want to be here. I was a drug addict. I did a lot of drugs. I know what it's like to go on 5-day benders and I don't want to be here. And so it's like, you can't even really just slip back into the space and be like, oh, I miss this so much.
Right.
Because you're like, oh my God, my life is so much better without this. This
That's
is
right.
not a place I should be, right?
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's some guys that try to go back to chemsex parties and sober, knowing that, without it, they can get hard and maybe they'll be, and I tried this actually. I was like, well, I'll just go back. These are sex crazy, sex hungry guys. I can get hard. I'll be the most popular guy there. But I was so much more aware of the craziness, of the
Yeah.
instability. And the fact that people were scrolling or they couldn't stop watching the porn, and there was actually hardly any sex happening, but I was in the paranoia and the psychosis, and I was just like, this is so uncomfortable. Like you're saying, like
Yeah.
this is not what I thought. So
Yeah.
I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think also for both of us with the work that we do working with men, like I
Yeah.
love that I have the empathy and understanding of when a guy is coming to me for help and support and I can be like, yeah, I know what it's like. And
Yeah.
I can say that. And that's
right.
amazing to be able to say to someone.
That's right. That's, this 80% of it really is being able to sit in front of somebody who knows where you've been. They've experienced exactly what you're experiencing, and that just breaks down so many barriers, and you go right into a deeper level of connection with that, I think. because of that.
So just to kind of wrap up the conversation on chemsex, what do you
Mhm.
think is the missing piece for a lot of the gay men? Is connection, community,
Mhm.
intimacy?
Yeah.
Like, what are the things that these guys are missing?
Yeah. It's a full range. The big one is loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
And so meth is a shortcut to connection. The need for validation, the need for approval, the need to feel sexy, internalized homophobia. These are all reasons why we're using. And the thing is that the discussion and the dialogue about the problem needs to start with the gay community, but it's not being talked about in the gay community because we don't
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to take away our sexual rights. We don't want to, I have guys message me and goes, "Why don't you just let them party?" And I'm just like, "You're not seeing the despair and the men losing their lives here."
Mm-hmm.
It just it needs to be talked about and brought to the forefront, and less stigma. The stigma that is felt with these guys is just it's so heavy that you don't want to seek help even. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest reasons, like I said, this need to be connected.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing, since COVID, we're seeing a lot more men who are actually using by themselves. They'll get some meth, they'll get their lube, their sex toys, and their porn, and they'll lock themselves up in their room for 3 or 4 days. And then there's an increase in using sex workers for it, escorts, because the escort, it's faster. You don't have to scroll through Grinder,
Mm-hmm.
and the escort brings the drugs with them too.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just gives you instant connection. It gives you instant validation. It gives you instant attention, and you're not lonely anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and the shame situation. Like if you're feeling shame about yourself, about being gay, this takes all of that away, and you forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
At least for a
Yeah.
couple.
Yeah. What I wish, I mean, just everyone, but I think one of the things about it too is, just with any drugs or alcohol, like I know a lot of times it's hard to admit you have a problem when you're having a lot of fun because you're
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, if I say that this is a problem, then I'm gonna have to deal with it. And then,
Mm,
but what I wish for people is like, I don't care if you are using heroin to get through the day, like no shame, but I wish we could
mm,
all be like, let's just be honest about what we're doing and be like,
mm.
hey, what are the consequences, the side effects of
Right.
what I'm doing? I don't have to change anything. I just want to be able to sit with at least being like, this is a struggle for me. Like, even
Yeah.
for myself, like, I was doing a lot of Coke at the beginning of summer. And this was kind of the beginning of like my, I don't want to drink anymore and stopping these things. But I started doing Coke by myself. Like, I would come home
Mm.
and have a couple drinks with friends, and then I'd be like, I got some Coke. And I hated it. I was like, I'm by myself. So, like, why am I doing this Coke? But it's Coke. So I'm like,
Mm.
every 15 minutes, maybe one more line. And like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, and it said this to my therapist recently where I was like, there was days where I was like, fuck, I did Coke by myself. I should tell my therapist. And I was
Mm.
like, no, I can probably just like clean it up and not do it again. And I won't even have to tell anyone. So I noticed that it was like, I
Mm.
still have shame and embarrassment of like,
Mm.
I'm still struggling with this. But at
Yeah.
least I was like, at least I'm saying this to myself that I'm like, at
Mm.
least putting the problem, it's uncomfortable. It's really hard to sit with, but like, just try to like yourself face what is going on and be honest about it. And like, just even that, I know it's really hard, but like, it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
just try to find that vulnerability with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And it's just to say and not to diminish alcoholism, but to say you have a problem with alcohol in the community is a little different than saying I use crystal meth, right?
Hmm.
There's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this. There's still a bit of a stigma around that prevents these guys from telling anybody that they use
Hmm.
meth because they're seen as a dirty tweaker or nasty
Hmm.
whatever,
Yeah.
right? And so there's a lot of that happens too that adds to the problem.
Hmm. And also, I think just for like just guys who don't use or whatever, but to be aware of the people that are
Yeah.
in your life and your friends and be like, notice if someone, I mean, there's so many times too, like even for myself that I was like, no one said anything. And people like, people could see I was actively struggling.
Mm.
And, it
Mm-hmm.
would have made a difference sometimes if just some one friend was like, hey, man,
Yeah.
you look like you're not doing well. Are you okay?
Yeah.
And a
Yeah,
lot
that's a
of
good
guys
point.
have a hard time even doing that. Because also if
Mm.
like you're all using or like even just like partying, right? If you're all
Mm.
partying in a group, you don't want to be the one to be like, oh, I gotta like gotta end the party because I gotta mention. It's like a lot of times it's easier to just be like, well, I won't say anything and just let everything happen because it's
Mm,
gonna create this like clog in what we're doing and make it more
yeah.
real. But I think it's, it'd be great if we were more aware of what's happening in our friends' lives too.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great point. If you know your friend disappears every weekend and
Yeah.
doesn't answer their text, really pry,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
try to find out like what's happening here. What can I do to
Mm-hmm.
support?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one more question for you.
Okay.
What are you most excited for in your life right now?
Well, what I'm most excited for in my life really truly is my business. Just in it growing and the impact growing. I have a book that I've helped write. It's a study guide for a book called Lust, Men, and Meth. It's written by Dr. David Fawcett, and it's kind of like the go-to book for in this industry. If you're a gay man trying to stop using crystal meth, it's the book Lust, Men, and Meth. And so he did an update and a study guide, and I helped him with it, and we co-wrote it. It's coming out in a couple of
Oh,
weeks. Very, very, very
nice.
excited about that. Just just getting resources because, like I said, like I was on an island, and I didn't know, and my family didn't know. It was so isolating, and so to be able to provide specific resources for this specific drug for this specific demographic is really an honor. It's an honor, and
Mm-hmm.
I wake up every morning and I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I just
Mm-hmm.
can't believe this is my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I started it and I thought I wanted to do it, but I honestly never knew that it would become this robust and this successful. And so I'm really excited for what's to come next and to just increase my impact.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like also the gift of all this stuff, right? Is to be able to like
Yeah.
it becomes like your life purpose and yeah, and I just think too, right? It's like anyone working with people in some sort of therapy sense, right? Like you got to be empathetic, and a lot of times you have to go through that shit yourself to be able to help people. So, and you
Yeah.
must be
Yeah.
able to like look back at that 36-year-old and think like that person never
Wow.
would have thought you'd make it to this, right?
No, that person was God. You think about, I mean, just so confused, so eager for approval. Yeah, the world I lived in was so small too, and I see that. I see that a lot with men who come out late, and that's another one of the things that I want to do is provide services for men who come out late, at
Mm-hmm.
least some kind of
Yeah,
coaching, because it's a whole different
totally.
scenario. Especially if you've been married to a woman, you've been closeted. There's you got kids you have to deal with, so it's a whole other scenario.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on this and talking about it. It's a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. I really appreciate you giving me the platform, and I hope the right people get to hear it.
Yeah, totally.